Good afternoon, everybody. What is going on? I am jeffgrantMEDIA, and in today's video, we are going to be waxing the Gootium Canbvas Rucksack. Now, you can see I did remove the label. The main reason I did that is so I can get a full waxing of the front of the bag. I may put the Gootium tag back on because, as you can see, there are some pretty big holes in its place where the tag was. And that's because this is a leather tag and it's kind of thick, so they did use some thicker thread and a thicker needle, so it did puncture the bag. So I may put the label back on just to cover up those holes. But the supplies I have for this are the bag itself. I have a 2-pound bag of beeswax here. I have a dollar store bowl to put the beeswax in to melt it, and a cheap brush to paint it on. Now, the reason I went with beeswax as opposed to like an otter wax or something like that is because I have another bag from an Australian manufacturer, and after talking to the owner of that company in Australia, they use beeswax. They don't use what we use here in America, which is essentially a beeswax paraffin blend. They use mostly a straight beeswax. So that bag needs to be re-waxed. It does need a few other issues that need to be addressed, some TLC, so I'm not ready to wax that bag yet. So I figured I want to see if 2 pounds is going to be enough. That bag's a little bit smaller than this one, so I want to see if 2 pounds is going to be enough to hopefully do this 30-liter bag. Then it will be enough to do my 20-some liter bag. So I want to see if 2 pounds is going to be enough. And also I want to see how it's going to apply and how well it's going to work to use the beeswax as opposed to using some beeswax paraffin like an otter wax. And I bought this dollar store bowl because I'm going to pour the beeswax in the bowl, boil some water, melt the wax, and then paint the wax on with my brush. And then I'm going to use a heat gun to melt it and work it into the materials. So we're gonna start by melting some wax. And honestly, I've never done this before, and my biggest fear here is keeping the wax melted long enough for me to get it fully applied to the bag. So let's see how well that works. Okay, so there you have it. I took some wax, not all of it, but I filled the bowl with some wax. I put it in a pot with some water, and I am now waiting for this water to boil to hopefully melt this wax that I will then run downstairs with and try to paint it onto the bag before the wax melts. Now, I am timing this to see how long this entire process is going to take. It is about 10:30 in the morning right now, so we'll see how long it ultimately takes for me to complete this task if I get it done today. I do have some other things to do, so if this takes longer than 2 hours, I'm going to spread this out over a couple of days, and I'll collectively tell you how long it took me. Okay, you can see the water starting to boil. The wax is melting a little bit around the edges, and I did put the bowl directly in the pan. I thought about putting it on top of like a shot glass or something so it was lifted, but I thought, as you can see, it's moving. I didn't want the water to boil, knock this bowl over, wax spills all in this pot, then my wife kills me because I ruined the big pot. So I'm gonna let it just sit in there. I put some trevettes on the table downstairs because I also put a plastic bag over it because this is probably gonna be messy. And I have these little oven mitts that are probably need to get new ones. They're pretty dirty, to grab the blazing hot glass bowl and carry it downstairs. Now you could see it's starting to melt a little on the edges. And I do have this little plastic straw here that I'm just gonna try to mix it up a little bit. See, it's definitely melting, it's working. So we're just gonna see how long it takes to finally melt. We've been going for about 7 minutes now. So we'll see how long it takes to fully melt this bowl, and then how long it stays liquid for me to get it applied to the bag. So here we are, about 15 minutes into boiling, and we still have quite a large chunk of solid wax in there. So this is going to take a while, and I'm not sure how long this wax will stay liquid. Probably not very long at all, so we're gonna be quick. Once this melts, we're gonna grab and go and try to not burn ourselves in the dash to get to the basement to try to wax this bag. Okay, let's be quick. We already seem to be hardening. Well, I was gonna try to be nice and neat and not get the seams, but I don't think, or the straps, I don't think that is going to be an option right now because how quickly this is, so I might as well just coat everything, I guess. And wax the whole bag. I was gonna keep the leather and straps clear, but ooh, you could see I am definitely heavy. Very, very heavy. But I guess as we melt, we'll probably have to scrape some of this off, or we'll at least be able to go back and get some of the areas that we missed with the wax that's spelting, namely on these buckles here. So we're going to take the heating gun when we're done and wax the saw with a heat gun. I'm seeing that the wax is actually staying liquid a little bit longer than I first anticipated. As soon as I took it off, I saw those bubbles at the bottom, which I think are probably some water, some condensation coming in. I thought that was it rehardening as I was trying to dash downstairs, but I think that was actually just some of the water that may have popped in from the boiling. As the water was boiling, I think it might have dipped into the bowl a little bit, and any of the water condensation that was caught in the wax from being in the bag. So this is, again, this is regular beeswax. This is stuff for like candles and canning. I believe you can use this for canning. I think you use this to help like seal the tops when you're canning things, so you get a solid seal on your food so it lasts longer, it doesn't go bad. But I'm rushing, and I don't think I had to rush as quick, because this is definitely staying liquid way longer than I thought. It took a good 20 minutes of boiling to get it to liquefy all of the wax that I had there, and I did put probably way too much wax in initially than I should have. I probably should have put half of the amount of wax in. It wouldn't have taken nearly as long to boil, but live and learn. Again, it's the first time I'm doing this, so you know, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, but as you can see, I am making a mess out of this bag. So I'm probably going to be scraping quite a bit of wax off it. I did not think I was gonna have this much time to apply, so I was rushing, and I don't think I had to rush. I think I would have been fine if I slowed down, took a breath, but live and learn. I wouldn't know until I tried it. And I could definitely see why a bar, even though slower and more labor intensive, is probably the better option, because you can definitely be a lot more deliberate with where you're putting the wax, as opposed to I'm dipping it and it's just kind of rolling and running everywhere. So hindsight, using a bar of wax probably would have been preferable. Although even though this is taking quite a while and a lot of resources to melt the wax, a bar would have taken probably triple, quadruple the amount of time it'll take me to do this bag. But I'm actually getting further than I thought. I didn't think I'd have enough wax in this go to actually do the entire front of the bag, and I think I'm pretty close to the whole front of the bag here. Much more than I thought I'd be. If I can get these two pockets done, I think I'll be in good shape here. Then I'll melt what I have on here and work that in and see where we're at. I'm not too concerned with some of these little spots you might see me missing, because I have so much wax on here right now that when I melt it in, all of these spots are, I'm sure, going to get more than enough wax. So you can see I'm obviously missing little spots here and there, but you can see how thick this wax is going on. Once I melt it, I'm pretty sure it's going to work itself into all of those little spots, and it's not going to be any concern at all. It'll be completely covered. I still have a fair amount of wax in there. I think I can get these side panels too. I'm gonna go ahead and take my watch off. I'm afraid I'm gonna coat that in wax. I am glad I remembered to put the drop cloth down. Even though this table isn't the greatest, I still use it quite a bit, and I don't want to get wax all over everything I set on this table. So I'm glad that I, an 11th hour, remembered to put a drop cloth down. Just trying to get some of these creases and wrinkles of the bag. All right, let's see if I can get the rest here. I'm not going to wax the inside because this is pretty thin, so I'm fairly certain waxing the outside of this bag, once I heat the wax in, it's going to melt pretty through and get the inside of the bag. Also, I don't need the inside waxed because I don't want it getting on all of my things I put inside the bag. That would be nice to keep my personal items wax-free if at all possible. Okay, I'm still rushing, but this wax is staying liquid way better and way longer than I had anticipated. So I can probably take a breath here. Yeah, I just splashed myself a lot. I'm glad I took my watch off. Probably should have taken the shirt off. This is one of my favorite shirts. It definitely looks like a candle melted all over this bag. So my biggest concern was that the wax would harden before I even got down to the basement, and that obviously did not happen. So the wax did stay liquid for quite some time, but now we are at the bottom and you can see it is hardening up quick, that it is thin. I think the heat from the wax definitely helped it stay liquid in the bowl, but you could see, I mean, the bag is white. That's the color it started, but now it's pretty white. So now we're gonna get the heat gun and hit this up and see what happens and melt this all in and see if we ruin the bag or if we improve the bag. So here we have my Harbor Freight heat gun. Now this has two settings: blazing, melt your skin and face off hot, or medium heat. We're gonna go with medium heat and see how well this works. Now probably about 3 to 4 inches from the fabric, and that's working really well. You do have to be careful with these heat guns because I have used these for other projects and it will burn things. If you hold your heat gun too close to your subject, it will actually burn or catch things on fire. I've used these for many projects in the past, stripping guitars of some polyurethane paint, and it will actually light things on fire if you have it on high and have it too close. So make sure you're a safe distance away. Okay, so the top-down camera died, and this one's about to die too, but the whole front is basically done. You can see there's a few of these thick spots that I'm gonna have to knock off with probably a wire brush because it was just really heavy in a couple spots, but it melted in, for the most part, really, really well. It feels thicker. You can definitely feel, I did not do the back yet. The back definitely feels softer, more pliable, where the front is definitely stiffer, and the bag is considerably more heavy. So I still have to do the back, the bottom, and a little bit of the trim where the bottom meets the side, and then I'm gonna, in the straps, and then I'll do the cleanup. I'll wire bristle it, I'll hang it down here to dry for a couple of days, and then we'll see the final product. So let's melt some more wax and get back to it. So here's round 2 of melting the wax. I just took my heat gun and I put it on high, and I've been at this for about 2 minutes, and it's like halfway melted already. So this is much, much quicker than boiling water. And you can see the red glare down there. That is the incredibly hot barbs inside the heat gun. So do not put this anywhere near your skin because, yeah, you're gonna get a severe burn. So here we are, it's about 6:30 at night. We started this whole process at 10:30 this morning. There are some spots that I'm noticing that I'm definitely gonna have to hit up again. You can kind of see this side here, I missed it. I definitely didn't do this little flap here, so I'm gonna hit that up just to make it all match. You can see a little bit here on the edge of the straps here. I didn't get, and this seam here, I mean, I'm looking at it with my eyes and it looks pretty consistent with the rest of the bag, but through the camera, it's looking really, really light. And then the same thing with this little patch panel here. It's looking a little lighter, but again, with my eyes, it looks a tad lighter, but not nearly as much lighter. It's probably the lighting too. We're in a basement. Here's my basement, workshop, junk. Here's where we film. This is actually, when I call it the studio, we're in my basement. This is where I film everything. There's a bar. That's for a channel that I never actually launched, something that someone else did the same idea and it did much, much better. So I just never did that. But the lighting down here isn't the greatest when I don't have the studio lights on. But yeah, with my eyes, it definitely looks more even than it does with this iPhone that we're recording on right now. But I definitely see a few spots that I'm going to have to touch up and hit with a second round. I'm going to let this cure and dry for a day or so, and then I'll hit some of these spots once it's totally dry and it looks a little even. I can tell a little bit better. And you see some of these like flecks of white, mostly in the seams. It's where the wax kind of got stuck, where it kind of melted, where it was a little excess wax. So we'll take a wire brush, we'll knock some of that off. And some of these little specks here were from when I laid it on the front to wax the back. The wax that was stuck on the table kind of just stuck to the bag, so some of that will knock right off. And you can even see the little bit of leather here where the wax kind of melted and dripped off as opposed to sank in. So I'll put a little bit more on some of these leather bits here, but it looks pretty good. I mean, you can see a few of the strap pieces where I missed, but this was my very first time waxing a product, and I used the paintbrush method, which you cannot control nearly as well as if you used a block and rolled it on. When you take a step back, you can actually really see the color difference here. If you want to look, this is the inside of the back where I did not wax as opposed to the front where it is. So you can really see the difference between where it was waxed and where it wasn't. I might hit that up because that'll be a high vis area that you'll see. So yeah, we're gonna let this dry for a day or two. Then we'll probably heat up a little bit more wax, hit some of these areas that I missed. Mostly on the back here when I was tired and rushing, and it seems like this one crease here. Now see, as you spin it, the light areas look dark again. I think it's just the way the light's hitting it, to be honest, which is why I want to let this dry and then give it a good once over and see where I need to hit it up. So let's let this thing hang here for a day or two and we'll revisit. I may have royally this bag up. I'm not touching it, there's nothing in it. It's standing up on its own, which is a vast difference from when it was new. So the wax, it's there, it's completely waxed. Now, this was my first time waxing anything, a bag, a jacket, anything at all. And I think I know where I went wrong. A few of the things I know I did right was using a heat gun instead of a hair dryer. From what I've seen, a hair dryer takes an eternity to remelt the wax and work it into the bag or jacket. And I also used a big garbage bag as a drop cloth so I did not ruin my table. Now the main thing that I did wrong was I melted the wax and tried to paint it on the bag. Now that gave me a lot less accuracy with where the wax was going. In addition, it being the first time I did this, I was rushing, so I was trying to paint it on quick before the wax rehardened. I actually had quite a bit of time before the wax rehardened, so I could have been slower and been a bit more intricate with my initial waxing on. Somewhere in the middle, I kind of figured it out and I was doing pretty good, but then the other part of painting it on was the wax was drying to the bristles of the brush. So the more I did this, the more the wax began to dry and cake up the brush. And stupid me, I didn't buy an extra brush, so I only really had the one, and I didn't have any backups. So if I had another brush, it would have been a little bit better, but somewhere in the middle, I kind of found my stroke, but then the brush got gunked up. So then I kind of had this gunked up brush, and if I tried to use the heat gun to melt the wax off the brush, it started to burn the bristles of the brush. So it just didn't work out well. So when I got towards the end of the bag, it wasn't, it was more like I was glopping wax on there as opposed to brushing it on. So when I got to the back of the bag, you can see I did have to re-hit this spot because it didn't coat very well, but you can clearly see there is a lot of wax, and this is the stiffest part, is all right here. There's a lot of wax right here. I did melt it a couple times and try to spread it and work it around with my hands, but because there's so much wax here, this is gonna take quite a while to break in. So had I used a bar and rubbed it on and melted it, it would have been a lot longer, but it would have been a lot more accurate and the bag would probably look a lot better. Now the other downside with brushing it, if I had a jacket, it probably also would have brushed on better because the jacket's more flat. The bag has all these angles and stuff. Like down here at the bottom of the pockets, we have these creases. So I went a little heavier in some of those spots. So I did definitely kind of try to work it in. I melted it, went a little heavier, or worked it in with my finger, went a little heavier so I can melt it, kind of work it in with my finger to get into those creases. So if it was a jacket, it probably would have painted on a little more evenly than the bag. So if you're gonna wax something, get a bar, rub it on. It will take probably 4 times the amount of time it took me to do this. It took me about 2 hours the first day to completely cover the bag. And then I did go back and hit it up a little bit more and re-wax it. So I'd say maybe a total of 3 hours total, probably less, probably more like 2.5, 2:45, because I hit it back and then I went back a little bit, and because I didn't have that brush, I was trying to melt some more of these little pieces back into the bag because I couldn't find my bristle brush. But I have to go out and buy one, and I'll knock the rest of that stuff off and clean it up. That's just excess. It's all completely covered. The other thing that I did wrong was I put the bowl in boiling water, and that took a little over 20 minutes to boil down and melt all that wax. So that was not very efficient. I have an electric stove, so I wasted 20 minutes worth of electricity. I had it on high, I boiled it, and then I also had to run from upstairs down to the basement with an oven mitt that I completely coated the oven mitt in wax because the wax was liquid, so it was swishing in the bowl. So what I did when I needed more wax was I put it in the bowl. I put my heat gun on high, and I blasted the wax in the bowl with the heat gun, and it melted it so much faster. Like, it probably took me less than 5 minutes to melt about the same amount of wax with the heat gun as it did with boiling the water. So if you're going to go the melted route, get a Harbor Freight heat gun. I bought this at Harbor Freight for a project probably 7 or 8 years ago. I bought this to help strip the paint off, strip some poly paint off a guitar, and I've used it so many times I've lost count. I think I paid $12 for this. I'm sure they're not 12 bucks anymore, but I'm sure you can get one for under $20, and it's just good to have. There are 2 settings on this, high and low. So high was what I used to melt the wax in the bowl. Low is what I use to melt the wax into the bag. And then just be careful because that does get really hot, and try to not put it directly at your hand, even if it's on low, because it could still burn your skin. So I would melt it, point it away, work it with my hand, melt it, point it away, work with my hand. So it did go into the bag very, very easily with the heat gun. The heat gun was great. I definitely went very heavy. As you can see, I'm looking at the monitor. I can see it like glisten, very heavy in certain spots. But then a couple of the other spots, it's kind of light. Like if you look at the flap, it almost looks like I missed a spot over here, but it's completely covered. The whole bag is completely covered. And I did go back and I did do the inside flaps of each of the flaps because it soaked through the outside, and I had like, it looked blotchy, so I did go back and hit the insides up. But as you can see, the bag, it's standing up on its own. It did not, it was very floppy. It did not do that when it was brand new. So it doesn't look great right now. I honestly will say, yes, it does not look great. I do need to go back and knock some of this excess off. But having used waxed garments in the past, they are stiff when you first get them. I've had many waxed jackets at this point, and they're very stiff when you first get them. But the more you use them, the wax breaks in, the wax rubs off, it loosens up, and it will definitely break in and loosen up and look a lot better over time. So do I regret waxing the Gootium rucksack? nah, it was a fun experience. I mean, I thought it was gonna be a huge hassle, huge pain, which if I did take a bar and rubbed it on, it probably would have been a huge hassle and a huge pain. It would have taken me like 4 or 5 hours to completely do the bag, but it was a learning experience. Now I know what not to do in the future, because I definitely learned a very good lesson waxing this bag. But ultimately, I think once I knock this excess off and I use the bag a little bit and it starts to break in and loosen up, I think it's actually gonna look pretty good. I have not taken this out, I have not loaded this up. So what I'm going to do is, because I have a lot of wax on the back of the jacket, I'm either going to wear this with a waxed jacket or wear this with like one of my work jackets. So I will probably wear it with one of those jackets to break it in. I may even load it up and take it for a short hike, toss it around in the woods a little bit. Maybe once we start getting a little bit of hopefully some snow this year, see how it repels the snow and whatnot. But overall, I'm satisfied with the project. It was the first time I ever waxed anything. I definitely learned a lot from this project. I know things that I'm going to do differently next time, and I know a few things that I'm going to do the same, like heat gun, no hair dryer, drop cloth. Drop cloth was a necessity because it will make a mess. So unless you're in like a workshop area, you're definitely going to make a mess. So you're gonna want a drop cloth. You're gonna want to probably wear some older clothes, because I did get some splash. I had my sleeves rolled up, so I didn't really ruin anything, but I definitely had my left arm, because I was holding it down as I was brushing, and I was getting some splash. And even when I was heating up and spreading with my hand was covered. So, you know, wear some older clothes that you don't mind getting some wax on. Use something, a table that you don't mind, or an area you don't mind getting some wax on, or just use a drop cloth. So don't paint it on, use a bar, use a heat gun, not a hairbrush, and make sure you use a drop cloth. Have fun with it. It might take you a while to wax the item you're trying to wax, but when you get done, it's gonna be worth it. I mean, I think this was worth it. This was definitely a worth it project. It was fun for me to do, and even though it's not a perfect result, I'm happy with the results, because again, I learned something through this process. So I didn't ruin the bag. It might not be the prettiest wax job, but it's my first wax job. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. If you like this video or any of my other videos, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Smash that big red button and ring that bell right next to it so you get notifications the next time I post a brand new video. Good night.